recording?
Nope. It doesn't need to be.
You're running that one?
I am. I shouldn't act surprised that it's working, but if you could see what has gone on behind the scenes.
Always, every time.
Yes. And I'm so excited. Wow, this is the best. The best. That's my camera, and that's the Instagram, and thank you everybody for joining us. My goodness, Sarah, this has been... Do you know, here's the truth. I love this. So everybody's asking questions. We have a whole bunch of questions, and producer Kay is going to ask them. And I just have to tell you, this has been the hardest season I've ever gone through in my almost 48 years of life. I have been knocked on my tail over and over and over again. I keep thinking it's going to be okay. I keep thinking, you know,
this
is it. No, I just keep thinking we're going to move beyond, like, we'll have a little normalcy, or we'll have a little bit of peace, or we'll have a little bit of who knows what, and nope. Yeah, a week ago, I was in my kitchen. We don't know what happened. Lost consciousness.
Yes.
Bounced my head off the kitchen counter, fell flat on my face on the floor. My children found me, because that's exactly what you'd like after mommy goes through cancer surgery, is to find daddy motionless on the floor, bleeding from the head. That was fantastic.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And then, you know, here's what Laura didn't need on the heels of that. She comes downstairs, and then I'm super belligerent and won't listen to reason. I won't calm down. I don't remember anything at all. A neighbor moved in 2 doors down that's a nurse practitioner. And, you know, honestly, brand new neighbors, and you can tell they are trained professionals in healing and in care. And it highlighted so much for me, all the things I'm learning alongside. It is very interesting to me that in every chapter you're reminding people, just not sure if you heard chapter 1, but it's not about you. I need to just one more little, it's so cute. Because it's such
it's kind of just, you forget, right? It's easy to forget that it's not about you. It's the person that's in trouble or trial or, you know, that's facing surgery, cancer, illness, falling down in the kitchen. It's about them.
Yeah. And this is the interesting experience which I've noticed. I have definitely noticed me reading my own story in Laura's healing. How I feel like I would react, the things I would want to know. You know, we would go to the doctor, and for me, the more information you can give me, the more comfortable I'm going to feel, the more settled I'll feel, the more secure I'll feel. The more questions I ask the doctor and the more things the doctor says, the more nervous and anxious Laura feels. And literally, she'll leave the doctor's office for a half hour so I can grill the doctor on every last thing that's going to happen. And then I'll feel better.
Right.
And she feels good because she didn't hear one of those things.
Right. So true.
And so we've had to learn what to do, because I have to know those things. I have to know about aftercare. I have to know what's normal, what's not normal. You know, there's so many important things to know. I have to know those things, but we've had to figure out she can't hear those things. It terrifies her. It's not appropriate for her to hear every last detail of what's going to... I can hear all those things. She just takes off.
Right.
And that's okay. You know, and you've said that so many times and alongside of, it's not how you go through it, it's how the other person is going through it, and that's okay. And when they say things that are crazy, that's okay too.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, respecting their journey, that whole chapter about recognizing what they need versus what you need. And I think that sounds like you guys have found a great happy medium, because ultimately you need what you need and she needs what she needs. But you found a way to do both and everyone wins. But if you were insisting or not recognizing that it wasn't okay for her to sit through all that, that would be bad. But
definitely,
you clearly...
Yes. Oh, for sure. Now, let's also be completely honest. This is, I mean, I love... Honestly, you know, my parents couldn't do this. When my dad started Focus on the Family, when it was mid-'80s and, you know, mid-'80s, 90s, they couldn't go on and say, oh, hey, we really, really blew it. And because we blew it so bad, we've now learned these great things. And I love this new generation because I can just say we're getting to that point now. We're getting to the point where I know I can hear all the information. Laura can't. I have to be okay with that. So she's going to leave. I'm going to stay. I'm going to ask all these questions. Then I cannot relay the information back to her because it would help me and I feel like it should help her. That took so many ridiculous landmines that I jumped on top of and grenades that, I mean, we fought over it for we're getting better at it, right?
Right.
We're getting better at it. That's the thing I wanted to tell all of our listeners too that listen and ask questions. All the fights, all the irritation, all the prickly, all the bicker, all the little, like this, so normal, normal, right? Like sometimes it gets people, like we get calls and texts and it's like getting people down. I'm like, no, it's totally normal. Totally. The bickering, all that's totally normal. Once you start recognizing like, oh yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah. I say stupid things all the time and just let it out, move on, breathe,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be willing to move on or else it will paralyze you. And then in the end, make the journey much worse for both of you.
Right.
Obviously forgiveness and realizing we're not perfect and we won't, even if we read all the best books in the world, we'll never do it perfectly. But
Definitely.
I really do think there's something so important about acknowledging it. And there's a lot of people that know they screwed up and then they don't know what to do. When really you just need to acknowledge to your friend, you know what? I probably was insensitive when I said that thing I said to you. And I've learned that maybe that's not the best thing. And so will you forgive me?
Totally.
And most people will just move right on and they're not going to be harboring their anger over that with you for years. Because I've heard those stories where people are still mad about what people said. And if we could just buck up and say, I messed up. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me for being insensitive to your needs and what you need? And it's over and done. And then that person can move on and be healthier and work towards healing.
Definitely.
And so can you.
Yeah. And if they can't, then you get to move on from that person.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but
yeah.
And you have to at times for your healing. If someone can't get beyond that, if they need more than is reasonable to ask of you,
right?
You really like. For me with Laura, I'm super protective on what I feel is reasonable to ask of her in this time.
Right.
And people that aren't okay with that, well, then we'll see you when we're healed. But until then, sorry, we're not going to see you. And that's okay. And we're just okay with it.
Right.
You have to be okay. You have to be okay with other people not being okay with you sometimes. That's such an interesting thing in I think today's culture. We've got this thing where we need to everyone needs to feel like we're all okay with the things that are going on, and I understand your feelings and your feelings are okay and my feelings are okay. All this, and when someone's in a crisis, I think most of the time it's like all your feelings are okay and who cares about mine? We're just gonna, Laura and I had that conversation today. She's like, we were talking this morning. She's like, I feel like you're angry with me. And I was like, I am for sure not angry with you. And let's be super honest, right? I've been frustrated this last week a lot. Yes, I had a concussion and I'm exhausted and all those things, but my frustration has, let's see, can't hear me very well.
Can you hear me very well?
Everybody says they can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
So I will try to turn me up a little bit. See if that works. People can let me know. What I was saying, though, is I can totally see how she hears anger from me because I've been frustrated and I sigh too much. And I've been a little bit of a baby about it. And I've just got to suck it up and go, you know what? It's harder for her right now. And okay. That's how it's going to be. It's a season, too. Isn't that interesting when it's a season? It's not. This isn't forever, but it is a season. It is.
Yeah, my husband had to live through 4 back surgeries.
Oh, my goodness.
And 11 weeks of bed rest.
Oh. So, well, but there's more than that. Like you say 4 back surgeries and you say 11 weeks of bed rest. I totally hear you. But on top of that, you've got medication regulation and monitoring so that you don't get hooked on the things they will 100% prescribe you, which are super addictive, that he has to think about.
Right. And the children, by the way.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. There was 3 kids under, 8.
Oh, goodness gracious. Absolutely. There's
a lot.
There's a myriad of things that go on, and when that landslide hits, I think sometimes I just go, okay, just one thing at a time.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. Kristen, you've got some questions that are already coming in. What do we got? The one we talked about this morning, the reaching out.
Yes. So Kay in Colorado Springs asked, how often is it appropriate to call and check in on family members?
This is a good one. How often is it appropriate to call and check in? Oh, is she saying specifically family members?
Or friends.
Or friends, okay. I wonder on this one, I think so much comes down to, I thought it was so important in the beginning of the book, you talk about which tier you are in. For those that haven't gotten your books yet or haven't caught up on the reading yet, there's tiers 1 through 4. 1 and 2 seem to be very close. Family members, co-workers, you're in Bible study together, you're on a sports team together, something along those lines, 1 and 2. There's a very different level of interaction than 3 and 4.
Correct.
So what's a good answer on reaching out depending on where you're at, I think?
Yes. So, right. You've already answered a great way that the most important first consideration is the relationship level. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that really here's the thing. If you feel inspired or called to reach out as a 1 or 2, and we'll just talk about 1 and 2 right away.
Okay.
Then I think that the most important thing is that you give permission to the person you're reaching out to not make them get back to you.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
So,
I so have to interrupt. Laura,
okay.
My wife, just had an amazing revelation about voicemail and texting.
Yep.
So specifically texting.
Yes.
We have,
if you don't respond.
Yes, because we have a cultural agreement in 2018. If I text you, there's an obligation that you respond to me, but there isn't. There's been no agreement that when I text you, I will absolutely respond back to that person. There's been no agreement. Now, if on your voicemail, it's not on mine. Specifically on mine, it says, the fastest way to get a hold of me is text. If that's not available to you, you can leave a message with the implication, I might hear it. I certainly might not. And those that know me, those that do leave messages on my phone, they understand. There'll be weeks I don't look at my voicemail messages. I don't.
Right.
Yeah, but that's an interesting one. If it says on your voicemail, leave a message and I'll get back to you, then you definitely have entered into a contract with another person, an agreement with them saying you will respond to them. I'm telling all my friends, change your voicemail. Don't make that promise. Don't add that stress to your life, especially if you're in a crisis. Leave a message that says, I might not get back to you.
Right. Well, and so if we want to be good alongsiders, that's the bottom line. So this is so great because everything I hear from you, side note, I'm working on my second book, and it's called Hope in the Hard Places.
Yes.
And so it's written for you and Laura, and what's the boundary for you, and how can you get to do that? And similar to alongside, but flip side. Okay, but side note, so we're in alongside, and how do we love our friends best? How often is okay to reach out? You can reach out as much as you like, as long as when you're reaching out, you are very clear. I just am thinking about you. You do not owe me a phone call back unless you want to call me. I would love to talk to you. You do not have to text me back. I just want you to know I'm thinking of you.
Yep.
Here's a scripture verse. But a lot of permission so that they can receive it and not feel that immediate weight. Because if they're being really loved by people, a lot of people, there's a huge weight that we carry for this, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All these people. And then we just throw up our hands and we don't want to get back to anyone.
That's right. Yes. And I know people are listening right now. They go, oh my goodness, exactly. We felt that. We had so many well-wishers and people, and the ones that stand out. And here's the thing. You have no idea the anxiety I feel because so many people were on our meal train that listen to these things. that they've been to our house. They brought us meals. They sent cards. We used one of the gift cards last night. I don't remember who sent us the Olive Garden, yard, whatever. It's like, there was like
Consider
six
yourself
restaurants listed, like whichever one. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I needed it so bad last night. Totally rabbit trailed.
No, that's okay. We're on how to reach out. And
Oh
you
yeah,
said
but
you can't always,
so the
it's
ones
too
that
much
stood out are the
responsibility.
ones that said, "Hey, don't respond. Just thinking about you." And
Yes.
I had this song or this prayer or whatever. We had
Yeah.
so many people that were like, it started off with, "Don't respond. Don't feel
Yeah.
the need to respond." Man, that takes just instantly. Everything that comes after that message for a person in crisis has such a higher percentage of being received
Yeah.
joyfully, all those things, because it's like, oh, okay, I can just receive this. I can just, it's so nice.
Right. And so some more guidelines for that. I would say if you're a tier 1, then you can text, but be sure that you're saying it's okay if you can't respond to
Yeah.
me. If they do not respond and you need an answer and you're a tier 1 or 2, and I've just texted again, just very gently a week later. Hey, I would love to bring a meal. I just was checking back to see if now would be an okay time or if this week works.
Yep.
So I've had people who've offered and then say, oh, I offered and they never took me up on it. Well, try again. Their life is
Yes.
chaos.
Yes.
It's not about you. It's not up to you to decide when and how they get back to you. You just have to go with grace
Yeah.
and lots of love and lots of, taking no offense. So I would say if you're a 1, you may text, but you may have to text again. If you're a 2, I really think in a crisis, leave the texting channel open for the 1s. You're a 2.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're a close 2, I feel like texting is personal. It's not everyone that I want having access to me by text.
Okay. So
That's just me. I think it's just you keep it a little bit more
trust me.
personal
Well,
in a
Sarah, I'll throw this bomb out there. Yeah, I changed Dolores' phone number because of this. I did.
True.
I changed her number. It just got overwhelming. It got overwhelming trying to figure out how to answer. How can we help?
Yeah. Oh gosh. And we're
know-
going to get to that, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
let me just before we move on, I just want to make sure I answer. So
Definitely.
the 2s and 3s. If you're a 3,
How do you
can
know
send-
between 1 and 2? I think, especially in today's age, I think sometimes there are people that are for sure confusing themselves with 1s and 2s, where they're like, oh no, we're super.
we're close.
Yeah, I don't want to get too personal in this, but I definitely know we have had some confusion on what tier.
People are in with you.
Yeah. I have had zero confusion on what that is.
Right. Well, you don't usually. It's just the people that want to be in your life and want to help and want to be needed and want
Yes.
to feel valued. And again,
Yeah.
we just have to go back to, it's not about you feeling needed or valued. One of my favorite lines in one of the interviews I did was someone said, when I lost a child, the best thing that a tier 1 said to me was, I don't need you to need me.
Yeah.
And so people get so much validation and we love to help and we want to come alongside and our heart is pure and we are very motivated by empathy and compassion and we can't imagine how this would feel. I mean, that's what they feel for you.
Yep.
But that's a burden that they don't quite realize they're putting on you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had a really rough conversation. In fact, I think you'd be okay with me sharing this. But there's a pastor that called. We went through a long series of miscarriages in between Lincoln and Lucy.
yes.
I think we had 4 in a row.
Person.
And I had a pastor call where he kept trying to make me feel better. He kept trying to, the Lord's got a plan and all the platitudes and the cliche things. And I'm salty. Like, if you know me long enough, I'll just be honest with you. And I just said, hey, stop trying to make me feel better. I'm sad and I deserve to be sad. I was so angry. And he was super honest. He goes, Ryan, I don't know what to say. I go, just say you're sorry. Just say you're sorry. And he goes, I am. I go, me too. I'm really sorry too. It was, I don't know, maybe 6 months later, we had another one. Phone rang, same pastor. And I was like, send a voicemail. Or I answered. He ordained me.
Yeah.
I was in that obligation mode where it could have gone very poorly at that moment. And he said, Ryan, I just found out. I'm so sorry. And then we cried for like, I don't know, an hour. That's all he said. And I was like, me too. And he's like, it's terrible. And I was like, it's awful. And then we talked about how awful it was. He did not try to make me feel better. And I felt so much better when I got off because I just could throw my hands up and be sad and not have to worry about taking care of the feelings of another person.
It's true alongsiding when you do that for people. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think we answered her question to the extent that you can. It's about remembering really your honest place in it all. And, you know, don't bother or bug. Just occasionally check in if they're not responding. I have a friend who lost a husband. She doesn't live by me. We are texting friends.
Yeah.
But in the initial crisis, I wasn't texting her. But once that a certain amount of time passed, I would reach out to her once every 3 or 4 weeks, and I would just send her a verse.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, nothing else. If she didn't get back to me, no problem. Or like the next month, I would send something, and she would start chatting, which meant she felt like talking.
Yep.
And 1 or 2 times she actually called me because I texted her.
Yeah.
Because she felt like talking. And so it's just really following their lead and being okay with just really a simple expression of I'm praying, I'm thinking, not necessarily waiting for acknowledgement or waiting for praise or waiting for feeling validated and valued and all of those things. I mean, we love to feel that way. We're human. It's a big human fault.
Oh, for
ours,
sure.
I think.
Yeah. And we want to feel like we helped. We want, the 5 languages of love. Oftentimes in these situations, we're giving love in a way that maybe we would normally receive it.
Yeah.
And so you want to know, is it working? Is it helping? Do you feel better? And sometimes people are just like, yeah, and as much as I feel better, my feel better isn't going to make you feel better. So wear your big boy pants. Don't worry about it, right? Like,
well, and you're a speaker, right? And so am I. So when you're standing in front of an audience, I always look for the listeners that are validating me as I'm speaking. And so we all want that. It's human. We just want some feedback, please.
Yeah, totally.
But in your alongside journey, I'm just so encouraged the listeners that are watching. Just remember that it does matter. And it matters even more. You will stand out more from the crowd when you say, I don't need to hear back. I don't need to know that you need me. I don't need.
And then really mean it.
Use those words.
Really mean it. When you put that, don't text a couple days later going, hey, everything cool? Like, then we know you don't mean it. Yeah, then we know. Sarah, I have an awkward one. So I got a concussion last weekend because I lost about 15 pounds way too fast. I didn't notice it was happening. That's the honest truth.
Right. When you're in crisis, you don't notice those things.
I wasn't sleeping and I wasn't eating and I was rapidly dropping weight and I was
drowning.
Yeah. And I collapsed and got a concussion from it. After that, my parents had made total comments about my weight. Laura had made comments about my weight.
Right.
I think producer Kay's probably said a couple things about my weight. She said yes, for sure. But a couple other friends were like, yeah, we saw you a few days beforehand. We're like, oh my goodness, like something's going on.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. My parents said something about it. Laura said something about it. Kristen said something about it. And I was thinking, yeah, I know. That's right. Yeah, I am losing weight. But I was not taking it very seriously. So my question is, should you reach out? Like my other friends, should they have come in and been like, hey, something's crazy. We see something, like, are you sure you're okay? Is everything all right? You seem like this much of yourself. I don't know if I would have listened. That's the honest truth. I'm super hard-headed. I'm really, really stubborn. I've got a big personality. I'm not necessarily that guy that you're just going to come in and be like, hey, like my friend Tobin could completely do that. I don't know if anybody else could. So what do you do if you see someone like, these are people in my Bible study. I'm just kind of, I don't know a nice word to say that wouldn't be inappropriate for this, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't take that kind of stuff very well. So if you are, these are like, for sure, at the very least, tier 2 people.
Right.
Maybe it's just me. I'm just wondering, is there a time where you can go, hey, I really hope this doesn't hurt our friendship, and, dude, you look bad. Like,
Right.
hey.
So we're jumping over to new book. I love this, Ryan. You're killing me because, like, I totally have a section in there about how we all need traveling buddies. There's a chapter called Traveling Buddies. And
we call that ride or die. Like, that's it. Like, ride or die, I'm there. Like, my friend Tobin, he has come to me and said, hey, I think there's something wrong with you. And I'll go, yeah, you're right. And I've made a big change.
So I think that you have permission if you're a truth speaker in someone's life. If you're a key tier 1 and you're a traveling buddy, even if you're in a Bible study and you're not like always constantly hanging out, it's kind of in how you present it. Because you can't just come in and say, Ryan, you need to take care of yourself. Like, that's not going to work.
Right.
But if someone came to you, and I've had to speak truth in some really hard situations in tier 1, and I've had truth spoken to me. So my first experience was when my friend was dying of leukemia, and it was a new diagnosis, and I was a real go-to, a number key tier 1 relationship. And the husband was making things pretty hard on the wife, similar to like what you've been facing with Laura. He's a realist, very practical. She's like, I'm living. I'm not dying, and it was a terminal in her situation. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just a distinction. But the bottom line is that he kept asking her questions that were really uncomfortable, that were making her dwell on dying, and she didn't want to. And so I, as the best friend of my friend, invited him over. And I sat him down and I said, if there was any way I could not be having this conversation.
I just realized I'm like shrinking down in the camera. Sorry. Like, I forget that there's a camera on me. You are so bold. I am so, you're like a Jedi, huh? It makes me, my palms are sweating because.
Yeah. So ultimately he received it. He did. And I just said, I don't want to be saying this, but she's living. She's not dying.
Yep.
And you're making her feel like she's dying, and I don't have a husband dying, and I can't put myself in your shoes, so forgive me in advance, but we have to champion for her because that's what she needs.
Oof, yeah.
And he changed it all, and she lived 4 more years, Ryan.
Whoa!
And so, like, we were, intensely preparing for death, and she was like, stop it!
Yeah.
I'm not dying today.
Yep.
And I'll let you know when I am. And we'll talk when we need to talk.
Right. And if I am, maybe I don't want to act like it anyway. Maybe I'm just going to not act like it until it happens, and then that's my choice, because it's me doing the dying.
Yeah. So then here's the second element of that, which is that I have had truth spoken to me, and it was after my friend died. I wasn't the one preparing for her death for 5 years. So I was rocked to my core, but I was trying to act like I had it together.
Oh, yeah.
Just like you've been trying to act like you had it together for your wife as you watch her and you grieve with her and feel her pain and don't want her going through that and wish it was you and all the things you're probably thinking. And so I ended up in the hospital with a panic attack, which they thought was a heart attack. And my husband and my best friend sat me down and said, hey, is this not the wake-up call?
Yep.
Like, you need to find a way to cope with this because you're not coping. It's been 8 months. You crashed and burned. You're taking care of everyone but yourself. Enough is enough. You're getting to counseling. And without them speaking that truth into me, I would have just thought, I had an anxiety attack. It was, I was blah, 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 10,000 reasons, which we can rationalize. But it was my truth speakers, my best friend, a second, like they were both my key best friends. One I lost and one was still with us, and she could see it for what it was, and she spoke truth and said, you got to get help.
Yeah.
And I went to the counselor the next week and finally acknowledged 5 years of walking and grieving and pain and hardship and the absence of even the helping, because 5 years of helping is a huge thing to grieve. And it was all of a sudden like, okay, no more alongsiding times 1,000.
Oof.
So we need to be open to receive if we're in the trial, but we need to be brave enough to really discern from God. Is it our place? And I would say it's not a quick snap to judgment. I did not sit my friend down just one night and grab him and say, hey, knock it off.
Totally.
I prayed about it. I sought the Lord about it.
Yeah.
I delicately went into it. I humbly went into it. I basically cried my way through it.
Yeah.
But I just said, we have to do better for her. And anyway, so.
You know what? This is an interesting one too, Sarah. What you did was the right thing to do. And the way you did it was the right way, even if it didn't turn out.
Correct. Like if he had said, screw you, use my expression, I would have been like, okay, I had to do this. I still feel okay.
Yeah.
Like what's the best outcome?
Yep.
But it's kind of about our expectation at the end of it. Like we're not necessarily going to be mad if they don't follow through on what we ask them to do.
Right.
So like if you're Tobin, your truth speaker, even your family, if they had sort of, instead of just in passing maybe, and I'm not trying to say they didn't do it right, but I'm just trying to equip our listeners.
Oh, for sure.
How can we do it better? If we've tried those methods, then you need to set apart a time and really make sure. It's like with our kids, right?
Yeah.
You have to tap their face. Are you listening? Do you see me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if we're going to be a truth speaker, we have to be able to approach it in that way. And it's about our countenance. And not all of us are capable of being that truth speaker. So
and you've got to ask yourself that question. Maybe you're not. Because so much of it isn't, this is the funny thing too. There are so many people that are like, oh, no, I am a full truth speaker.
I got this. I'll correct everyone's problems.
Absolutely.
Anytime I'm needed. That's not the right heart.
No, but are you a truth hearer as well? Because that's so much of what it is just saying, here's instantly what comes to my mind. I wrote a book called Be Intolerant because some things are just stupid. I wrote that almost 20 years ago.
I saw that, yes.
It was funny. It was tongue-in-cheek. It was kind of a joke. And then I met a lot of people that were like, I'm intolerant just like you. All those idiots out there, they're so stupid. We're going to tell them all what's right. And I was like, oh, no. The book was for you. The book was for you. Stop saying things like that, right? And that's not what a truth speaker is. A truth speaker isn't mean. A truth speaker is, I care so much. This happened, I had a friend that was engaged, and he had some serious blinders on. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Maybe easily top 3 most awkward conversations I've ever had. And I just said, hey, dude, I don't know how to say this, and this might end our friendship. I really, really hope it does not.
Right.
And I think you're making a monumental mistake. And that one worked out in the long run. I will tell you, it did not work out in the short run.
Right.
For sure.
If you're worried and you feel like you're not positive, I mean, it just does take a certain kind of person. But if you're tier 1, you have to really consider, is this my place? And sometimes you have to step up.
Yeah.
And not let your friend drown and risk. There's a section in the book, and I think it's in the terminal illness chapter, but it's about being willing to go through the fire. And so I remember going through the fire for my friend in the place where there was relationships with family and sisters and siblings and parents, and she had asked me to do specific things,
right?
And they didn't like that I was doing them. But my number one responsibility was to my friend.
Yeah.
And so I was willing to suck it up and go through the fire, even if they persecuted, even if they didn't like me when it was over, even because I was honoring her.
Yeah.
And that was my number one responsibility.
That's a rough one too, because while you're going through it, you're telling these other friends, and I said this on the last one, I'm going to mention it again because they were so cool about it. You've got to be cool to those people too and be like, I am so sorry. I know this is terrible. I know this is making you mad and upset, and this is the last thing that I want, and I have to continue doing this. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, two of Laura's all-time longest best friends didn't get her new number when I changed it. I didn't have theirs, and And of all the people that should have given me by the way, it was like a month, maybe 6 weeks before I got it to them. These are people that she was talking to on a daily basis that she's known her entire life. They should have given me so much grief for that. I mean, I could have had nasty emails and public things on my social media accounts because that's the day we live in of, hey, why are you keeping our best friend from us, blah, 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 all these things. I woke up in the morning and went, oh my goodness, hey.
I forgot.
And you know what they said? Oh, how are you? Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. Oh, how's Laura? Oh, I'm so happy she's doing what? All happy, all...
Grace.
It was so... I felt worse. Like... I felt worse, and it showed me true friendship in such a monumental way. Such a monumental way. I want to get to a couple of things here.
A classic alongside. Yay.
So Johnny Broxon, he is a long time friend of mine. I've known him for a million years. He lost his wife 4 years ago. Had a heart and lung transplant that, with complications, it didn't happen. And he was saying, it's been 4 years. This is an interesting one, too. So on May 18th this year will be, I think it will be 12 years since Laura's mom passed. And 4 years this June will be when Johnny's wife passed. And I got to tell you, it is a rough season. And he's saying, in times like this, sometimes I don't want to hear words of encouragement. And yeah, and for sure, I just had that situation come up. I put it in this week's newsletter. And he's saying, just hearing something like, hey, I'm thinking about you, or hey, I'm praying about you, and knowing I don't have to text him back, knowing I don't have to get back to him, or I can just be like, thanks, and that's all. They're not going to be back like, oh, thanks what? Thanks, reach out, all those types of things, right. For sure. And then Rick asked a question, but I'm going to get to Rick's. Okay, don't let me forget Rick's question, because Sarah, something you had in this week's reading was really, really, sorry, Barbara, yes, Laura is still with us, yes.
Oh, Barbara.
Sorry, yeah. We had a miracle. Laura doesn't have any cancer anymore. So,
praise Jesus.
I called my friend Jeff. I was going up to Denver for a doctor's appointment or something. I had to go pick up medication or something. I had to be in the car for 3 hours, and I called Jeff. I've known Jeff since I was 17 years old. I went to a camp called Summit here in Colorado, which I'll be at this summer again. He was the night watchman. He was only a couple years older than me. I've known him since I was 17 years old. He's just the greatest. And I called, and his wife Linda answered, and she was like, oh, right, how's Laura? All the things that you would say, and I briefly talked, and she says, you want to talk to Jeff? And I said, yes. Jeff runs a school. He's really, 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 really smart. He's like super smart. I love him. And he picked up and he goes, hey, dude. And before he could finish a sentence, I go, hey, don't make me talk about cancer. Please, 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 please. Please don't make me talk about cancer. And he goes, what? And I go, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about cancer. I know you care. I'm sure it'll be okay. The Lord's in control. Please, do we not have to talk about cancer? And he goes, okay. And then he talked to me for like an hour and a half about everything else I wanted to talk about. And I could tell, honestly, for like the first 30 minutes, he really, really wanted to ask me how I was and how was Laura. I could tell he was fighting it. He was definitely fighting, how do I ask? And he never did. And he gave me a break. Oh my goodness. Just to talk about other things and not have to, I just didn't want to talk about it.
Right. So were you reading Nourish Normal this week or a different chapter?
It's week 3.
I don't know which chapter.
It was chapter 14. It's chapter 14 because there's 3 questions in chapter 14 that I answered.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I've almost memorized the book. Like I can look at pages in my head and go, oh, this is what it says right there, because I looked at that and was like, ding, 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 right there. This is it.
Yeah, it's Nourish Normal.
Yep. Nourish Normal, yeah. Oh, in fact, I'm not going to mention his name. Someone was talking about that. They had a spouse go through a traumatic situation, was in the hospital for a long time, and that person said if they did it over again, they would have fed the normal more. I mean, they said babysitters, food, not going to the hospital every day, not living in a hospital, because what they tried to do was make hospital normal. Like, oh, we'll just do homework in the hospital. We'll just eat crappy hospital food. We'll just eat bad hospital food every day. This will be normal. And he said it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal. It was terrible. Trying to make terrible normal doesn't work. And so, the feeding the normal is it's such a good one.
Yeah, a lot of wisdom in that comment, even just, we've had so much experience with this, but as you said, if we make the person's life, everything about them, all about their cancer, their loss, their illness, their tragedy, their miscarriage, their whatever it is, their divorce, their unemployment, if we ask them every time we see them, we're not the only person that's asking every time. So it multiplies.
Preach.
And then all of a sudden there's no life outside of that. And if you remember in the book, we talk about how when someone walks by the pool, if you're in the pool for the first 24 hours, it's okay. They might say, oh, the water's a little, it's fine. Water's fine. But after about 24 hours, you're done with the water. And when they say, how's the water? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm drowning. I don't want to talk about it. And you're going to be the iceberg that sinks me. You're going to sink me to the bottom of the pool if you ask me how is the stinking water.
Yep.
So being able to be a friend who can really, really not just want to be in the know so bad that they have to ask. Especially, so there's some parameters. Number one, if you've not seen them, heard them, talked to them, any of that, and you run into them in the grocery store, you might not want to pretend you didn't know. Like, if you haven't acknowledged it once.
And you can say like, hey, I'm sure everyone's asked, I know you've been asked 1,000,000 times, blah, blah, blah. I had people do that to me. And they'll be like, hey, I know you've been asked 1,000,000 times. If you want to tell me, great. If not, how are you? Everything okay? What's going on? How are you? And it's like,
Right, refreshing. You can just say, I just wanted you to know, I realize, we don't have to talk about it, but I just wanted you to know, I'm sorry about this going on in your life. So, how are the kids? How's basketball? How's football? My best example is a friend of mine who was on the same sports team as my friend's family. They had my best friend who had cancer. And the husband would be on the sideline every game because he was doing life, normal, trying to just keep doing it. She's in the hospital. She's cared for. I'm going to go to sports. I'm going to feed the kids at home. We're going to visit, but we're not going to be doing our homework and doing all the things. We're going to keep our life as normal as possible for the kids.
Yeah.
And so this friend would always be paralyzed before a game because she was like, what do I say? How do I handle it? What do I talk about? What do I ask? I said, you talk about baseball.
Yep.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to relive cancer on the sidelines with you. He doesn't want to.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to talk about it with every patient that comes into his office.
Oh, my goodness.
You just have to try and remember that you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And that when they have 15 people standing behind them in church in line waiting to talk to them. No. People stop going to church because they can't handle
yes, they
the
do.
burden.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So you're just normal. How would you be normally? Would you run right over them after church every week? No. If you would, then yes, go right over.
Yeah.
Go to breakfast. Go to lunch.
Right.
Keep inviting. Take them to parties. Go to coffee. Do Bible study. Ask about everything else.
Right.
I just used to get so sick of being defined by, how's your back?
Yes.
And then it's just like they melt and they sink and they the pity.
You're so weak and feeble. How are you? Can I put a pillow around you? You're so weak. Ugh.
And it's so well intentioned. I know. I hope everyone hears me.
Oh no.
I know that.
I know. And here's the other one too. Find the group that you can totally bitch and moan to. Find the group, like my friend Andy Brainer. If I ever have a speaking event that goes catastrophically wrong or something only a speaker would understand, only someone that travels for a living would understand, only someone that knows airlines and airports and hotels and check-ins and rental cars, everybody else is like, ooh, it must be tough that you...
So glamorous.
In your rental car. And I'm like,
not.
Andy understands. I can call him and be like, dude, and he'll just start laughing. It's okay. Sean McDowell, I call when it's when I've been. I don't care anymore because I'm old, and he doesn't either because he's way younger than me, but he's older and more mature.
Right.
We've been introduced where they'll give our dad's introduction, and then they'll go, and they have a son. Here's Sean McDowell. Like they'll give Josh McDowell's bio and how Josh McDowell changed their life, and how I read More Than a Carpenter, and that saved me the Lord. And he has a son. His name is Sean. Welcome, Sean. And the crowd's like, what?
Right. I thought we were getting the carpenter guy.
Exactly. Now, there are so many people that look at my dad and are like, no, your dad saved my life. Like, don't you know your dad? And I do. I know. And I'm okay with it now. But for years, I would call Sean and be like, you want to hear the bio they gave? And he's like, ooh, what is it? Like, Sean was way more mature, way nicer about it than me, and he understood the plight. Yeah, find that group. Hang on a second. Rick asked, this is a good one. And Rick, I have an answer for this one. Where did you go, Rick? Here you go. You know, it says that we should bear one another's burdens, and the Bible also says that we shouldn't be a burden to others. I hear you, because he's saying, isn't that a little bit of a contradiction? Yes, and the and is, okay, Laura's cancer and the stuff we're going through is a burden on me and our family. It's true. It's true. But it's a burden I get to shoulder. I get to, I want to, I desire it. It's what I want from marriage. I want to be that person. I don't want anybody else to take that role away from me. And she's that for me because she can help me in a way that nobody else can. Like if I'm crashing and Tobin steps into my life, for him, it's not a burden. Is it a burden? Yes, of course it is, but it's not. And I think, Rick, you understand, like when it's your kid, like Lucy had a growing pain last night at 4, I don't know, it was like 2:37, I think it was, so in the middle of the night.
Right.
That used to really bug me, and I'm not a great parent. I'm not a great parent. And just recently, I realized she's so little, but it's like she's not, like she just lost her 2 front teeth. Her adult teeth are going to come in, and I'm never going to experience it ever again for the rest of my life with her. I'll never have it again. And the fact that she came in the middle of the night and had a growing pain, I was like, oh, do you want me to come lay with you? And she was like, yeah. And I went and I laid with her, and we prayed, and I rubbed her back, and she fell asleep. That's not a burden. I lost a bunch of sleep because of it, but you get to do it. Yeah. Like I get to. And with friends, and when it's that way, I think you understand. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes, that's all good. And it's holy. It's a holy opportunity to carry someone's burden. And
it's
when
so rad.
It as like a weighted down burden as opposed to a privilege and a chance to literally be hands and feet of Christ.
Yeah.
Then it changes everything.
Oh, yeah.
Just like how it shifts your parenting when you say, it's a privilege to get to lay with my kid even though I'm awake for 2 hours.
Well, it changed everything about our life. Honestly, that's, and I'm going to give Paul Tripp. Paul Tripp, with his book Parenting, it changed so much. Kristen, I was just going to ask you something. Shoot, what was it? We were talking about bearing one of those burdens, and that wasn't a burden, and,
He said it was a contradiction. And I think I
thought I had something smart to say, but apparently it wasn't that. I don't want to miss anybody else's questions, though. Do we have other?
No, if you want to keep going with that right now.
What was it?
What do you think? Somebody did ask. What do you think holds people back from helping?
Ooh.
Man, there's so many things. Here's the one that's changed for me is the perspective. It's so I have a relationship with somebody that believes an absolute, complete opposing viewpoint to me. And here's the truth. They're just wrong. Oh, my gracious. They couldn't be any more wrong. Scientifically, they couldn't be more wrong. And it doesn't matter because they're not going to believe science. They're going to believe their own thing. And so what I've had to do, and I had a counselor tell me this, is I have to decide, what do I want from this relationship? Do I want to be right about science, or do I want to have a relationship with this person? Well, I want to have a relationship with this person. I love this person. I never want to not have a relationship with this person.
Right.
There is no narrative in my brain for their belief system. It is the dumb. It's like if you said the sky is green. Like, for real, it's the dumbest thing in the world. And I'm so black and white. I'm so binary. There isn't a narrative for that belief. And my counselor was finally like, well, do you like him or not? I was like, oh, I for sure like him. They're like, well, then let it go. Stop. When they say those things, you saying anything contradictory is only going to hurt your goal, which is to be close to that person. That's all I want. I love him. This is one of my favorite people in the whole world. I love him, love him, love him. I only want to be close to him. And therefore, me being right only takes me away from them.
Right.
Who cares? It's not a faith issue. They're not going to hell for it. We just disagree. And they're wrong. But
I love it.
that perspective change, so when you're helping someone, when someone's in a crisis, if you can first ask yourself, what is it that I want from this relationship? Because sometimes that means, we were at a church a while back and we had a big conflict with a person, and our counselor was like, well, are you going to continue to have a relationship with them? And I was like, no, definitely not. They're like, then let it go. You don't need to talk to them one more minute of the day. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you have no future. Zero future. Therefore, you're done. And I was like, oh,
Freedom!
hey, we never spoke again. I don't have any animosity towards that person. I don't have a bad I don't even know what our last experience was. It certainly wasn't a weird, awkward conversation. So what do you want from the relationship? If you want closeness, maybe just be wrong. Isn't that great? Just be wrong.
Yeah. Well, and why do people not do things? I mean, you said it's about their perspective that would be shifted, but I also think that if they had the right tools, it wouldn't be so hard to know what to do or say.
Yeah.
Which is why people don't do anything, is because they're paralyzed by the inability to know the answer. And they don't lack compassion.
Yeah.
They just lack confidence. And that's the whole purpose of why I wrote alongside, is so that they could open the book and say, I could do this.
Yes.
I could make a specific offer today. I could be the person at the soccer field that nourishes normal. I could be the person that offers to walk the dog instead of being in the know with the wife and texting and being, I could offer to take the children, even though it's not as glamorous as maybe being with the patient. There's so many ways that we can help if we're open to doing what we're called to do.
That's right.
Not necessarily what we want to do. And if we take the charge as I can learn and grow and be confident and learn the right tools.
That's right.
And this is kind of formulaic. It's not hard for anybody if I'm willing. That's how we change it.
And it's so every time I pour into the book alongside, honestly, it's so packed full of things that are practical. It's helped me with Laura right now. I mean, people feel like we're through this.
Right.
So not.
Yes.
And it helps me with her all the time. I know we're getting towards the end of our time. Sarah, you sent us something that I'm going to read a couple of them, but I'm going to do my best to not just bawl because I did every time I read them. You have these cards. I'm going to, it's on autofocus, so you can't read them. They're scriptures where you've taken the person's individual name and inserted it. And you sent this to Laura and you sent it to me. And how do people get these? By signing up for the newsletter? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to tell people how to get them for themselves because it's so amazing. You've got Romans 8:31 says, if I am on your side, Ryan, and I am, who can be against you? James 1:3, for you know, Ryan, that when your faith is tested, your patience has a chance to grow. You've got 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18. Ryan, be joyful always. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Matthew 11:20. I'm going to keep doing this. It speaks to me so deeply.
Oh, I'm so grateful.
Then Jesus said, gosh, it was so hard. That's the first one that came. It was Matthew 11:28. And then Jesus said, Ryan, come to me.
All you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I'm so grateful that those ministered to you. Because sometimes there's nothing to say, but when we can make God's word personal and intimate for the person, and they can receive it in their own time and place, and we're not trying to insert ourselves, it's just between you and God.
It's exactly right. That was exactly what it was.
Yeah, it's about Him.
Totally. And you know what? Here's the truth. As much as I would never wish what we're going through on anybody, I'm so glad we could do it publicly.
Right.
You know, I'm glad that we started the ministry when we did. I'm glad that this book came along when it did. I'm glad that we read it for the first time and then we got struck down so hardcore and that we could call back. I'm glad we started the upgrade. It was there's no coincidence with the Lord. I'm glad we started the upgrade when we did because it was so important. And I wanted to do this one first and I wanted to give it away because everybody goes through crisis. Everybody goes through crisis. Everyone needs help. And to have a tool that's so profoundly helpful, it's so practical. It'll build your relationships. It'll deepen your faith. There's so much good with it. Kristen, how do we sign up? I can just ask you. How do we sign up, Sarah?
Oh,
yeah.
I sent her the link, but that's so funny because I get it wrong every time. It's sarahbeckman.org/personalized-scriptures. Is that
I'll tell you what
I sent you?
Yes.
I will post it on all of our Facebook pages.
Scriptures.
I'm going to post it on all of our Facebook pages. I'm going to have Kristen take pictures of mine, and we'll post it on our Instagram pages, and we'll have links in the bio to your newsletter to sign up for it. Oh, they're sparkly, too.
Oh, yeah. You just pick whatever paper you want, and that's the beauty of it. You print them at home. I have a video that you get when you when you get them delivered to you.
Oh, it's so rad.
Oh, okay, so I lied. It's printable. So sarahbeckman.org / or whatever, the one that goes like this. Printable -scripture -cards.
Printable
-scripture -cards. They sign up, you hit download, there's a video that shows you how to make them, how to do them, and you basically just pick your own paper at home and you print it. I bought shiny paper, and I keep the supplies on hand, which is my greatest tool.
Oh, nice.
And I think that's the most important part about being a great alongsider, is that if we remember that it doesn't happen by accident, that we do have to be a little bit intentional. It's important to keep some disposable dishes at home. So
thank you. I literally was just going to say that. Okay, so I want to give that for the practical thing, too. I love that because you can just be ready for it. That's what Alongside does. It just makes you ready for whatever comes your way. When you get the call that's divorce or death or the job or the kid or whatever, and then you're like, oh, what do I do? Now you've got your go-to. You ask yourself, which tier am I? I'm here. Okay, then therefore, it's like a customer service thing. Answer A, then you go to here. Right. What can I do? Having those cards printed out, those things that are just like, boom, we've got it there.
Yeah, keep the ribbon. I keep the paper at home, and then when I need to print them, I open the thing, I put your name in, and I pray over which ones I want to send and whole thing. But
the disposable containers the disposable containers on Amazon, I get those. The deli containers. Here's the thing too: don't give somebody something you want back. That's not nice. Yeah, right. I have to wash your dumb thing and then keep track of it with its lid.
Then there's stacks and stacks on the dining room table or the back hall counter or the washer machine. Or
when am I going to see you? Oh, now I'm going to make special trips to. Oh, mine didn't work.
No.
Yeah.
I have to tell you one great story, Ryan. Are we out of time?
No. We're not out of time.
And it's not great in some ways, but it's great in other ways. So I have a kid who's 21 and goes to school in New York City. And sadly, in the fall, they had a situation where one of the students took their life.
Oh.
And they're a really small school, 600 students, and they're faith-based. And and he called me crying and at 10:30 at night. And, just what do I do? And he was on his way home to get like blankets and things like that to take back to the lobby of the school because they were going to leave it open all night. And it was cold and all these different things. And then he called me the next day and, that night he said, "Can you please send me the scripture cards, Mom?"
Oh.
Right away. And
Awesome.
I was like, "Yeah, I'm sending them. Just print them on whatever paper you need to, cut them. You can put person's name in, whatever." So I said, "For your purpose, because you have multiple people you want to love, because this girl was in a house and there's like 60 to 100 kids in there, so they wanted to like come alongside that particular house at the school. It's like a fraternity meets Hogwarts."
Totally.
And so they printed them and just hand wrote the names in for each kid and walked around and put them in people's doors.
That's so
And then
great.
he called me the next day and he said, "Mom, I feel like I'm cheating. You have thought of everything." And Ryan, is there any greater thing than when a 20-year-old kid in the crisis that you never hope happens to your 20-year-old kid
That's right.
in school? And then he offered to bring the president's family, the wife and the president of the university were caring for this family who had to fly to New York City, and they were with them for 48 hours and walking through all this tragic stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And my kid sees the president's wife and he said, "Can I bring you some dinner tomorrow?"
Oh.
And he went to the grocery store in New York and bought noodles and made chicken noodle soup and packed it up in disposable things and found her at the school and brought her soup. It's totally doable. If a 21-year-old kid
That's right.
can do it in New York City,
Yeah.
then we in our suburban houses in America,
Yep.
we can.
Yeah.
And he was a tear, he didn't even know the family.
Right.
He just loved the people that were loving that family and the people that were grieving, and he did his part. And then he had to move on. And he was okay because he did what he could do, and then he moved on. And honestly, it's not like he has some special gene. I mean, he
Right.
is really compassionate and awesome, but he's a 20-year-old kid in college with school and studies and hard and everything's inconvenient, and he did it.
Yeah.
So we can. We can come alongside.
That's awesome. Wow. Sarah, thank you so much. It's just such a pleasure. I love doing this. I can't wait to do it again. I love that we got to do this one with you. Thanks for being on. I can't wait.
Yeah, you guys are the best, and I'm just cheering for you. I know it's going to get better. Brighter days are ahead.
It is. Yeah, it will. It's going to be super hard until it does, and then when it does, I tell Kristen
You'll
all the
look back,
time,
though.
like I'd say, the story we're going to tell. The
Yeah.
story we will tell, and when we're through, it's going to be a miracle.
Yeah, I've been focusing on Psalm 40, and I love, and I don't have my Bible open, but it basically says that we pulled us out of the miry pit and put a new song in our mouth.
Yeah.
And I love that, and it's a little bit cliche when we're in the hard place, but I love when you go further into the Psalm, like around verses 9 and 10, it basically says, "I will declare your faithfulness to the congregation."
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I can't wait for that time, Ryan, for you
Me
guys.
too. Me too. Thanks, Sarah. You have a good one.
Thank you.
Talk again. And...